back home. But yeah, I feel like it maybe dawned on me that because I've explored this a lot, like really what was the issue that kept me from being able to handle things the way that I've always handled them. And I even had people telling me, it's not you. It's not the girl we know. I get it, man. You're right, it wasn't the girl. It still isn't going to be the girl that you ever knew because I found out something about me. The people I meet going separate ways. Times to tell the name by the bottle that you drink. Inside your love, all you do is sing. Yeah, I never experienced the feeling of fear. I never had that type of element, that type of experience in my life. So when things happened and my brain uh, didn't really know how to take it, on top of the fact that there had been an injury, more than one. There was actually one I even forgot about until I pulled a report. Totally forgot about one. Another one I totally knew about, and that's why I went after them. And then the original serious one was a couple years after a car accident when I had a whiplash. But the real serious one was in work. It was at work, and the person told me they were going to kill me, and um, but they had a fork. They were coming at me with a fork, and I was making dinners. I was a group home manager, and I was making dinners for the clients, and I knew all the clients except for this new one. And it was the week COVID broke out, and I was a brand new house manager. I'd been cooking for as a chef at this facility for a few months. I think it was 4. When when the owner had asked me if I would consider being the full-time house manager, and I was commuting pretty far for a new position as a teacher because I had been cut out of the budget as a director of a institute here in Arizona, and a new CFO came in and decided that particular position, the marketing director and principal, wasn't needed anymore. So, well, anyways, so that school's not in existence anyways, and there's been a lot of changes within that whole network of education. So, but anyways, so I had a new position, and the money wasn't correct when I got the first paycheck, and there was some discrepancies between what HR had told me, and one thing led to another. It was a 4-day week district, and then they prorated it, but they didn't tell me they were going to do that when they offered me the salary, and so we got into this little hoopla about a month into me being there, and the group home owner asked me, she says, hey, would you consider being the full-time group home manager? You wouldn't have to commute anymore. You could stay right here in Mayer, and we'll be able to pay you if you work enough hours. We'll be able to pay you as much as you're used to making, or pretty close to it. And so I did it. But then COVID broke out that week, my first week of full-time, or second week it was. Then COVID broke out, and so they had to, like many facilities, had to change their procedures. And one of their procedures was an intake. So the story was that we have a new person coming in, you got to do the intake, and I didn't know any of the background on the individual. And this was a group home for behavioral with adults. So there was medications being administered and things like that. And it was a new client, and new client, um, the second day there, had to be taken out by law enforcement and by the fire department because they were non-responsive when I came in the second day. And the first day they had given me a hard time. They weren't allowing me to do what I was told was the procedures for a new intake. And it was my first intake. Shrugging their shoulder, being disgruntled, being upset, things like that. So I thought, well, I'll do this process tomorrow. I'll explain, you get 7 pairs of pants and 10 shirts or whatever the rules were at the time. And, but the second day when I came in, um, non-responsive. And so one thing led to another, and they were taken to the hospital. And then about 8 hours later, the hospital wanted them to be picked up because they said that they did their screening on them and the individual that had been positive for methamphetamine. And I thought, well, they can't come back here. And the group home said, yeah, we legally have to go pick them up and we have to bring them back. And then it was dinner time. And so I was making deluxe grilled cheese dinner for, they loved these grilled cheeses I made because I put them on like the big bread and used the real cheese and shredded it and everything. And they loved it. And we had other things with it, but that was always a big night. And I could only make 4 at a time. And this individual was upset. And still disgruntled and clearly on something because the hospital said so. And the owners dropped him off, and he says, well, it's my first intake and I'm not supposed to be here alone anyways with this many clients, and this is, can you guys stick around? I don't feel comfortable being here alone. And they left. They didn't care. And within that hour, this individual attacked me. And thank goodness the other residents knew me and was able to call 911 because I was unconscious. Not once, but twice. And so I think that with that and just a new situation in my life of dealing with somebody who was provoking me with a lot of drama and finding out that this individual knew the other individual because they had been institutionalized with the individual. But it took a long time to figure all that out. And anyways, so here we are. It's a few years later, and I have different processing than I had before. And in that, I have a new feeling too. And it's a fear. And fear is just not something I ever knew how to process. So fear in me is like fight or flight, which I know that from Psych 101 and working with people that in different lines of work I've been in, and working in with students in schools is where I've learned most. I used to work in a boarding school as well for behavioral, a boys' school and a girls' school. So I know that world and working with people on that level, but not like anything quite like this. But I've had to explore the idea that, it's a new emotion for me. And I think I take it to the moon. I freak out. Not like freak out, hurt anybody or tear anything up, or not like physical freak out, but like mentally freak out. Like I freak out if things aren't just so. I'm like having a hard time adjusting to the new world I live in, which is not at my home. In my home, I had before the head injury. And I already come from a very regiment type upbringing. Like I say, regiment upbringing. I come from a strict background, and I was taught, to do things and have like almost like an order to doing things, almost like a protocol. You do this. And I learned to manage myself at a really young age because I was working. I started working at 4. If anybody's ever started working at 4. And so I learned to manage my money, and I learned to be goal oriented, and I had to have a wardrobe and things like that. So I learned how to do things, but the skill set I had to apply after the head injury later in life was to keep myself together and functioning. I had to rely on that routine. So thank God I was already a routine type person. So I had to rely on my routines to really get going again. My aunt's deceased now, but I have an aunt that claimed some of my first memories after the head injury was her telling me on the telephone in the months that followed, "You've already called and told me this today." So I was experiencing quite a bit in that recovery, and it was during COVID. So I wasn't getting there was no doctor to go to. There was nobody to go to try to get any help with this. It took a few years, and I found out really what it is they have to go, there's things that they can do to reduce concussion, and it has to do with like therapy with your neck and things like that. And I didn't get that type of help. Then on top of that, I got re-injured not once but twice. Well, I know about two other times. I only knew about one, but in researching what had happened, I found out there were two additional head injuries. So therefore, there might even be more that I don't know about. But the two that I do know about, they're documented. They're documented. And I think that's why I had a really hard time when I was being provoked with fear into selling my home, because my brain knew it shouldn't have been doing that, but I didn't know what else to do. I was scared, and I was making decisions based on what a couple family members were also encouraging me to do, and I shouldn't have made those decisions because those family members were not there for me after I sold. They told me they were going to be there for me, and they told me things that weren't true that made me make the decision to sell. And then they spun me forward into a future that I had no idea what I was going to do. So imagine going into the future completely blinded. Almost like this video, or not video, but there's a video in the background, but like this video right here, like how it keeps getting dark. Just imagine coming out and having to like come out and wake up one day and like you're in the middle of like you don't know what. So over time, I had this enormous stress holding me back, a number of losses to process, and just this fear of the unknown, on top of experiencing a level of intimidation because the people that put me into those whirlwinds don't want me to talk about it. I wonder why that is. How interesting what's going on in the world today. I point to the TV because thank goodness I get to stream and stay up ahead. I used to just stream like court TV, not the high impact court where it's all dramatized, but the real court TV where you could watch real cases going on. Just like back in the day when I saw the O.J. Simpson trial. How many of you got to see that? That was the year I moved to Arizona. So I started taking videos to see how much I would say that I was remembering, and I started working on helping myself get better in my new world. But I was stuck. My brain was stuck in what it knew before. I have been in this home now for 6 months. I'm not going to blame how I'm feeling completely on this brain injury. I'm going to say that it's time I call back. So I have been. And I have that right. And I'm going to keep on keeping on. Because the people that know me have had to go through this with me, and they don't like it. And I don't like it. But I'm going to come out of it 100%. I'm already back on top of things. I don't feel like it because I still have these other feelings I'm sorting through. But it's there. When I say it's there, I mean the old me, it's there. And the old feelings, I can get those back again too. Feelings of peace in my routine, in prosperity, and my ability to reap what I sow, which is goodness. I've never had problems like the problems that were interjected into my life by people who thought they were going to get a huge payout. They did, but I had no idea what they were really coming after. But because of the intensity of everything combined, I started digging, and boy, did I dig so deep. I have found out so much. And I have somebody who's capitalizing, they think, on that content. Okay. They're caught. Mhm. There's been a report made. Mhm. And there's old reports getting cleaned up. And there's people being looked into. And there's people that have been charged. And I'm too scared to call to ask if I'm the victim in those cases. Give me a break. Yeah, this whole thing of scared and fear, it's not going to be here much longer. The dog's back there sleeping. She's been such a good girl through this whole thing. I never would have adopted any animal had I not had a place for the animal. And I technically really don't. I mean, we make it work. But she doesn't have a big yard to run in anymore that's all fenced in. Neighbor dogs. She doesn't have that anymore. So she's adjusted too, but she was hurt in all of this, just as bad, if not worse. So I'm gonna enjoy this candle, enjoy the rest of the night, come back and watch this later, see how much of it I remember, see how I'm speaking, making sure that my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. Because they are. But I want to see it. I want to check it out for myself. And I kind of like me. I always did before. Gotta like yourself first.